industry's walking a tightrope. It's got to keep demand up for its vehicles, but it also needs to make a profit. For this reason, we are calling this disruption as usual. 89% of our respondents said that they had at least a 10% productivity gain from AI. It allows OEMs and part suppliers to ideally pass on as little of the cost increase as possible and instead use innovation and optimization to cut costs.
Today, we are shifting gears to look at an industry that is cornerstone of the Canadian economy.
There are fundamental structural changes that have happened here in supply chains and with tariffs that really don't allow the developments we've seen in the last couple of years to be undone anytime soon.
Hi everyone, this is Maheen and welcome to the CanadianSME Small Business Podcast. Today we are shifting gears to look at an industry that is a cornerstone of the Canadian economy, which is automotive. Now, from supply chain visibility and digital transformation to the massive shift towards EVs, the road ahead is filled with both immense opportunity and significant uncertainty. Joining us is Dave Power, the Audit partner and national automotive sector leader at KPMG in Canada. Dave has extensive experience supporting the automotive ecosystem from OEMs to parts manufacturers, navigating complex accounting, ESG reporting, and the rapid evolution of future mobility. He's also here to share insights from KPMG's latest report, Disruption as Usual, and we'd love to dive into it deeper and welcome him to the show. David, very pleased to have you on the show today. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I'm doing great.
Dave, KPMG's recent data, it shows a major gap between car prices and what Canadians can actually afford, with 62% refusing to spend more than $50,000. And with so much of this consumer pressure mounting, how can the automotive industry maintain profitability while really addressing the fact that most Canadians, they feel cars are becoming unaffordable?
So you're bang on that affordability is the tension of the moment. People are worried that the cost of cars are going to go up. In some of our industry survey responses, many said that they've already started to increase prices as a result of the tariffs. As you mentioned, many won't spend more than $50,000 on a vehicle. I think the 2025, they said the average price of a vehicle in Canada was $44,000, so we're not that far off. And 3/4 are worried that trade tensions are going to push those prices even higher than they already are today. The industry's walking a tightrope. It's got to keep demand up for its vehicles, but it also needs to make a profit. And so the industry is taking a bunch of different measures. But I think the one thing to keep in mind is the automotive industry is always facing challenge. And so for this reason, we kind of are calling this disruption as usual. Mm-hmm. They maybe more than most industries are used to working through tough situations and coming out healthy and stronger on the other side. Two big levers that companies are pulling on today, and when I say companies, I'm talking mostly about automotive manufacturers or OEMs and the part suppliers, are productivity and cost efficiency. You see optimizing of supply chains, you see standardizing platforms, using more product agnostic designs, meaning that whether it's EV, whether it's internal combustion engine, hybrid, that it works for any product. So you're not as fussed with what the powertrain is. We're also seeing AI being a big driver of productivity. 89% of our respondents said that they had at least a 10% productivity gain from AI, and 1 in 5 said it was more than 25%. So it allows OEMs and part suppliers to ideally pass on as little of the cost increase as possible and instead use innovation and optimization to cut costs.
That is a tough balance to strike, Dave, and it kind of highlights that affordability is now the primary hurdle for industry's growth. Now, while affordability is a challenge for the consumer, on the production side, there is a massive effort to pivot Canada toward a new kind of vehicle. more than half of Canadians, they believe that our country can be a global leader in EV battery production and assembly. Tell us, what specific strategic support does the Canadian parts sector need to ensure that we successfully transition into a global EV powerhouse?
EV is a very interesting topic these days. I think there's perhaps a bit of a different view on the consumer side than there is on the industry side. And I'll say that I'm not sure that everybody's always racing in the same direction. And our survey results do show a mixed picture. More than half of Canadians that we surveyed think that Canada could play a stronger role in EVs. But on the industry side, the focus isn't necessarily on moving us to a purely EV environment, especially in Canada and North America, where I would say that supply chains, costs, and tariffs are far more of the focus than as a movement to EV. I'd say companies are really keeping their options open. As I said previously, this idea of an agnostic product where it works on any type of powertrain is where a lot of manufacturers and certainly part suppliers want to be, so that the manufacturers use their parts in as many vehicles as possible. There are some interesting developments around the world where you have Canada and European countries looking to spend more on defense. So is there an opportunity there to move into defense production? And a number of respondents mentioned that they are looking to move into defense production. So something we really haven't seen before, but we're also seeing with increased defense spending that may be something that provides a bit more of a business opportunity than it has previously. What does the parts sector especially really need to do in this area? It's nothing complex. I would say it's pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. Stronger domestic supply chains are necessary, more skilled workers, and also government support. 37% of our respondents believe that government support is important to get EVs as being far more of a focus. But I think more importantly, it's important to keep Canada as being an automotive powerhouse, maybe with EV powerhouse being part of that, but not necessarily needing to be the whole story, at least not today.
That is an inspiring vision for our workforce, Dave, and it proves that domestic manufacturing, it remains the heart of our automotive future. Now, success in manufacturing, however, is entirely dependent on our ability to move goods across the borders, which brings us to the high-stakes world of trade policy. There's a lot of anxiety around trade, with 72% of Canadians are worried that prices will skyrocket if we lose custom protection under the CUSMA or CUSMA. Tell us, how critical is a new trade agreement, Dave, to the survival of the Canadian auto industry, and what is at risk for small to medium suppliers?
So in one word, it's critical. This trade agreement couldn't be more critical. I think Canadians in general are anxious. I think that's consumers as well as industry, quite frankly. 51% believe the industry won't survive without a strong trade protections. And a lot of those today come in CUSMA, or the Canadian, US, and Mexico trade agreement that replaced NAFTA, and which is under review right now in 2026. For suppliers, especially the small and medium ones, I would say the risks are more substantial. They have fewer buffers to absorb tariff-driven cost increases. They're the most exposed, I would say, to supply chain disruptions, and they may struggle to relocate production or re-engineer just because of the resources available to them versus some of the bigger shops. Geopolitical and economic pressure are areas that the OEM thinks are going to be most disruptive in the next 3 years. I think it's already disruptive. And the number one business priority for the industry in Canada is securing supply chains and raw materials. But I would say that the industry is adapting. 70% are exploring new international markets and shifting production and looking to shift production. We see Canada going out and developing new trade agreements. Those are interesting, and we'll see how it plays out. In terms of automotive manufacture and assembly is very much just-in-time business. And so to think about taking our current North American ecosystem and using it to support car production in other parts of the world suggests you're moving away from that just-in-time environment, which keeps costs low, going back to our discussion about passing on costs to customers. With the CUSMA review is gonna be the primary focus this year for everyone, and seeing where it goes. No one is benefits by losing the protections under it. 10% of our respondents are worried about their businesses failing altogether. So a small number, but still a number to pay attention to. And the federal government's trade deals again may or may not be the most beneficial for automotive because of that just-in-time environment, and really it would be more setting up plants in other countries versus taking our workforce here and doing something additionally with it for the most part. So in summary, CUSMA is not a nice to have; it's absolutely necessary for our automotive industry to continue the way it is.
That is a sobering reality, really, Dave, and it emphasizes that trade stability is the backbone of a predictable automotive market. Listeners, if you're worried about the rising cost of transportation, then please learn from this conversation we had with Dave about why vehicle prices might rise, the truth about the EV revolution in Canada, and get exclusive insights from the new report. The new report is called The Disruption as Usual, and you can stay ahead of the curve in this era of changing lanes. Now we'll take a short break. Please don't go anywhere because we will be back with more insights on how to navigate trade tensions and future of the automotive industry.
Hey, you think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. You still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep, healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah, well, book it, ship it, track it. You feeling me yet? Yep, that's all us. That's all UPS.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's dive into how companies can turn regulatory compliance into a strategic advantage in the world of ESG. Now, beyond trade and manufacturing, companies are now being measured by a new set of rules regarding their environmental and social footprint. As an ESG assurance leader, Dave, you've seen how new sustainability reporting frameworks are becoming mandatory for industry players. Tell us, how can automotive companies turn ESG compliance from a regulatory burden into a competitive advantage in the global supply chain?
Good question. ESG is two-faceted. One piece I would say is the targets for zero-emission vehicles that we have in Canada right now that are currently under review by the federal government, and that one becomes a bit more tricky, I think, for the suppliers and the OEMs to maybe turn into an advantage, because to the extent that customers don't want the vehicles, it becomes challenging, of course, to sell them. Mm-hmm. So right now, again, we're seeing some of these targets come under review, and with the idea, hopefully, that they'll be reduced, I think, from the automotive industry perspective. And then there's also the demand side, where I'm not sure that you have a lot of demand right now for electric vehicles. They can often be more expensive. People are worried about range anxiety, and there's there's just the capacity of the charging infrastructure to be available for people to charge their vehicles, and then whether it's as fast as stopping at the pump to fill up with gas. Mm-hmm. From the regulatory compliance perspective, that's a bit more of an interesting one in terms of needing to actually report on and track the emissions that your company makes. Right now in Canada and the United States, there aren't any requirements to do that, other than in California, which are coming, and the ones that were planned for Canada and the U.S. have been delayed indefinitely. There are other areas in the world that are further ahead on this: the EU, Brazil, Australia, China, to name a few. And so, where I think we can help most in terms of that aspect is if companies themselves are focusing on reducing their emissions. And it doesn't have to be necessarily anything massive per se. It can be putting in more efficient lights, looking at how to change heating and cooling to perhaps make it more efficient. But I think the idea here is that if you as a company are doing this anyway and reporting this, that when OEMs in some of these jurisdictions are required to report on this, it may actually become a competitive advantage for you to have this data available to them, and quite frankly, have metrics that are showing, good progress towards being a better let's say corporate citizen by having lower ESG metrics, or I should say better ESG metrics than others. And so an OEM may choose you versus a competitor that doesn't track this data, or whose metrics aren't as favorable as yours.
That is such a smart way to view regulation, Dave, and it highlights that transparency is becoming a new form of currency in the automotive world. Finally, let's look toward the immediate future and the major findings you're about to present to the industry. KPMG is launching a major report ahead of the International Auto Show titled Disruption as Usual. Tell us, please, what is the number one takeaway from this report that every Canadian business leader should understand about the road ahead in 2026?
I think it can be summed up into there's no going back. So this is the new normal, as they say, or maybe I should say there's no an administration change or some other change happens and we're just back to the way that it was. There are fundamental structural changes that have happened here in supply chains and with tariffs, with technology, with consumer expectations that really don't allow this to kind of the developments we've seen in the last couple of years to be undone anytime soon. Even as companies with the tariffs look to potentially move production from one area to the next, that's not a decision that can be undone or reversed quickly. And often for companies, it would simply be more costly to do so than to leave it as is. So yeah. Where we are now is probably we're not going to take steps backwards. There's the potential now to see where it goes from here. Some of that will be topics that we've discussed in terms of EV adoption, tariffs and geopolitics. I think are certainly top there, and also securing supply chains and raw materials. But I will say that optimism exists for where things are going. So 40% of business leaders that we surveyed believe they'll emerge stronger than this. And as I said, that's a common trend in automotive where don't waste a good crisis, right? And as I said as well, very few businesses think that they're at risk of failure. So the winners are going to be the folks who expand their horizons, who look for new opportunities. We talked a little bit about defense. We talked about the potential to support supply bases and OEMs in other continents. Invest in technologies and workforce skills, and this isn't just about investing in technology or AI. It's also about investing in the people who know how to work with and develop AI and turn it into something that can be truly productive. I know many of our respondents, as I mentioned, did see productivity improvements from AI, but I think there's a question of how far does that go, and how can you really leverage it to get further. And in manufacturing, you see some easy wins like shop floor productivity and maybe some back office. But where else can you go with it to really support to support your customers and lower your costs? Mm-hmm. Forming strategic partnerships. So we're seeing more and more, if you've got an EV specialty here, or you're a technology company and you've got you've got a company over here that builds vehicles, can they get together to build something that customers really want and to take advantage of the new technologies that are out there today? And certainly for every company that's out there, complacency. So this is not a time to sit still. It's not time to wait and see what happens. My fear for those who do that would be that it'll be too late at some point, and it'll risk really disrupting your business or putting in jeopardy altogether. Right. So as I mentioned with the Kuzma review, probably more than anything, but many of the other events going on worldwide, 2026 will not be calmer than 2025 has been. But I think for those that adapt quickly, perhaps rethink what they're doing, expand new horizons, it can certainly be rewarding.
That is a very powerful final thought, Dave, and it confirms that resilience and agility, they are the only ways to navigate an era of disruption as usual. And Dave, as we wrap up, if there's one key message that you want listeners to remember about the future of buying Canadian in the auto sector, what would it be?
So buying Canadian is a very interesting concept, let's say. And so, 72% of our customer respondents said that it matters whether their car is built or assembled in Canada. But the thing to remember about the automotive supply chain in North America is it is truly integrated. It is the idea of breaking it off and having three different, let's call it automotive ecosystems, one in Canada, the US, and Mexico, would significantly increase costs for the companies, and those would absolutely be passed on to customers. I think for Canada, most certainly, we would also see, if everybody wanted their car to be built in Canada, you would see reduced choice for customers, simply because many of the vehicles that are sold in Canada are not manufactured here, and the vehicles that are manufactured in Canada, many of them go to the U.S. The other thing to think about is that, in a vehicle there are many hundreds or thousands of parts that are used to assemble them. Some of those parts are made in Canada, and then go to the U.S. or Mexico where the vehicles are built. Sometimes a part can cross in various iterations the borders in North America, almost 10 times before it gets to the final place of sale. And so maybe the question that I want to challenge consumers to think about is, what is Buy Canadian? And is do we really want and need a car to be fully manufactured in Canada and with the consequences that may bring? Or is it important that we make sure that when companies that are in Canada are and that are selling their cars in Canada are contributing to the economy, are adding jobs, are paying their taxes, and maybe that's what we need to see to just make sure that Canada is getting its fair share of the benefits that a very integrated North American automotive industry brings.
That is an important message for our economy. That was a very powerful message, Dave. Thank you so much for sharing such great expertise and your vision with us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And that was an insightful conversation with Dave Power. We explored lots, including the affordability gap, the EV opportunity, and the critical role of trade in our auto future. Thank you again for tuning into the podcast. Please be sure to subscribe for more expert insights. Visit our website, CanadianSME.ca, for valuable resources. A special shout out to our partners, UPS, A1 Global College, ADP, and Google, for their ongoing commitment to empowering small businesses in Canada. Until next time, please keep moving forward, and we'll see you in the next one.